So now, as if there wasn't enough for the Surgeon General to worry about, it has now been declared by the Surgeon General that a toxic job can be detrimental to your mental and physical health. Now, this is the first time that the Surgeon General, usually associated with stern warning on cigarette cartons, has made a statement addressing the effects of an unhealthy work life. Survey cited that 76% of U.S. workers had one or more symptoms of a mental health condition like anxiety or depression. That's a 17% jump from 2019. That would be known as workplace stress, and maybe you've got it going on in your life. So other than quit, what are the options if you think your job is causing you to have major health problems and not just mental health problems? Standing by is a licensed professional counselor with an MBA who studied human behavior for more than 30 years, and we have had Leigh Richardson on the show before, and it's great to have Leigh Richardson back to help us weed through this. Leigh, how are you on this glorious day?
I am great, and it's great to be back with you.
I'm glad you're here. I know that there's stress in virtually every job. And I think that's just kind of baked in with whatever you do in life. Most jobs are based on performance. But here now the Surgeon General saying that, you know, you've got a legit reason to go in and file a grievance with your HR department or your immediate supervisor if you think your job is bad for your health. I can see CEOs all over the world falling over and fainting or laughing at this. What's going on here?
Well, you know, I think the last 2 years have really created a lot of stress in the workplace. For the first 6 or 7 weeks, we couldn't go to work. And maybe the company wasn't set up with the technology so that it was easy for you to work from home. And so the whole culture of a company, whether it's a company of 50 or a company of 5,000, has really been impacted by the last couple of years. And I think that, you know, when that culture starts to go bad, people don't feel respected. They don't feel included. They don't feel wanted. And if you don't feel wanted, then you're certainly not going to enjoy being there.
Well, right. So if that indeed is the case, well, let's just say, I mean, you like the job. You're there because of longevity. You've got tenure, or maybe because you've been there a long time and you're making a pretty good dollar. You don't want to leave. What do you do at that point if you think, or you've been told by perhaps an outside source, that the working there is bad for your health? What do you do?
Well, you know, I think you have to talk about it. You have to go to the company and let them know it, because before the pandemic, 1 out of 4 U.S. citizens over the age of 12 was experiencing anxiety, depression, or some kind of substance use problem. Well, but 2 years ago, it was not okay to talk about things. And it has become a lot more okay to talk about why you're in, you know, what do you need to feel good? I think the Surgeon General suggested, you know, I don't know how serious it was, but maybe ask for a pay increase. And nobody's going to walk away from money, but money won't make you happy. If you don't feel like that, if you're being respected, if your manager always keeps you waiting 10, 15 minutes for a meeting, or if your manager doesn't even know your wife's name or your kid's name, you don't feel that that core value that we all have is respect, and you're not feeling it. And it makes you want to just say, well, what the heck?
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked for people that didn't even know their own name, let alone my wife's name or my kid's name. But in all sincerity, I think this is a lot to do, or has a lot to do, why we saw the quote-unquote great resignation, and why we see that there's a reluctance for this job force to grow. I think people just don't want to get involved or dive into something that's stressful. Now, we can argue whether or not that's beneficial to them, beneficial to the country, or whatever we want. I do think, though, that what the pandemic had done, it's given people to reassess where they are in life, and do they really want to go back to a life they led before then if they really don't have to. So I think what I'm seeing, at least, and it's all anecdotally, maybe you see it otherwise, I see people more interested in a job that they may go to work at, but not necessarily a career where they're married to that job. I think the pandemic has had a lot to do with that, don't you?
I do, and I know that 41 million people quit their jobs last year. That's a lot of people to walk off. Yeah. And you can call it the great attrition, the great resignation, but the people, I think they did a value check, because I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, I certainly stopped and reflected on what's the most important to me, and what do I value the most, and what do I need the most. And I think a lot of people did that. And they found, you know what? I end up, when I leave my job, I'm so stressed out at the end of the day, I go home and I scream at my partner, or I scream at my kids. And is it worth it? No, it's not. So I think you're right. We've all done kind of like we've reset that internal gauge on what is it worth.
Yep, the old checkup from the neck up. And so, Leigh Richardson, what would you suggest to somebody if they feel like this may be having an adverse reaction, working may be having an adverse reaction on their health? Maybe they can't sleep at night, or maybe it's made them more irritable, or maybe that they're putting on weight, they don't know why, or maybe there's just something that has them out of sort, and they're looking at themselves and saying, well, I haven't changed. I don't think I've changed. Well, what do they do? I mean, do they go seek some sort of professional counseling? Is there a first step? Is that done inside the building on the job? What would your advice be?
Well, obviously, you have many. Well, I hope that they have many options. Not all do. But if there is an EAP in place and you can reach out and talk to a counselor about it, that is a great first step. If you've got the relationship with your supervisor or your manager or someone in human resources that you can go and talk about it, because a lot of the dysfunction comes out of work design. You know, the way that people do their job has changed a lot. And, you know, can that work design be redesigned? That's something that it's a good question to ask. So before, a lot of people are doing what's called as the quiet quit now, or the soft quit. They're just, you know, doing enough to keep the job, but they're really not doing anything more than they absolutely have to. And that's hurting the organization, and that's costing the organization a lot of money. And I think that that's something that's being recognized on an organizational level. So for those that are brave enough, or that do care enough just about the overall goodness, go reach out and talk to somebody and just let them know how you feel, and just ask, what options do you see that I have? Yeah. Because if you go and you ask that question and you're told not many, then you got one or two things. You can either reassess where you are with it. And sometimes when we do that, when we really, you know, it's the old trick. You get that sheet of paper, you draw a line down the middle, you put the pluses on one side and the negative on the other side, and you'll see, wow, well, there's a lot more good here than I've kind of forgotten about. Yeah. So sometimes good can come from either way.
She is the clinical director of the Brain Performance Center in Dallas. That is where you can find Leigh Richardson, and also the author of Turn Your Brain On and Get Your Game On, the how, what, why to peak performance. Leigh, always great catching up with you. Stay well, okay?